organized this town hall so that we could, oh no, I can't. All right, can I say?
People out there are just staring at darkness.
All right, I apologize. I'm going to say that exact same thing again. So we're kicking things off. It's great to see a really strong turnout here in Independence Hall and also in our Zoom room. And, I organized this town hall because the recent burglaries have just been a cause for concern. And so I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to discuss the trends that we're seeing in crime and residential burglaries with our partners from the sheriff's office. And we're going to cover a lot tonight. And we're also going to leave time for Q&A. And the topics that we're going to touch on, and not necessarily in this order, are actions that the sheriff's office is taking to address crime, actions that residents can take to prevent crime, what to do if you are a victim or you witness suspicious activity. We're going to talk about automated license plate readers, or sometimes referred to as ALPRs. We're going to talk about their locations in Woodside and the role that they play in investigations. And we're going to touch on also the efforts and recommendations on curbing speed at Four Corners, which is the Skyline Boulevard and La Honda Road intersection. We can also touch on the sheriff's renewal contract that's coming up soon. And then, of course, we'll save time for Q&A. So before we dive in, I want to just take a few minutes to introduce our panel. On my left here, I have Kevin, our town manager for the last 12 years. I think many of you already know him, and we just really appreciate all of the time and effort and after normal work hours presence that Kevin brings to the town. I'm Jen Wall. I'm your mayor since December of 2023. And I've also been a council member since 2020 and a Woodside resident since 2013. In my day job, I'm a general counsel to a company called Intrinsic. It's a software and AI company in the industrial robotics space. And more importantly, I'm a really proud mom to 3 kids that all attend Woodside Elementary. Right here immediately on my right is Assistant Sheriff Ryan Monahan. Ryan is the Assistant Sheriff of the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, where he oversees the operations division of the office, which includes patrol, professional standards, and more. Ryan was raised in San Mateo County and graduated from Sarah High School. And he has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice management from Union Institute and University, and a master's degree in security studies from the Naval Postgraduate School. Ryan began his public service journey as a seasonal employee for the City of San Mateo Harbor Patrol and as a police cadet with the San Mateo Police Department, where he was hired as a police officer in 1994. He spent the next 26 years working a variety of assignments, and after promoting up through the ranks at San Mateo Police Department, Ryan was appointed as the Chief of Police of the Tiburon Police Department in 2021, where he served before joining the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office in February of 2023. In Tiburon, Ryan was credited with implementing 21st century policing practices that improved transparency, community engagement, and diversity in the department's workforce. Ryan is honored to serve his home in San Mateo County as the Assistant Sheriff, and we're very lucky to have him here tonight, supporting the mission of Sheriff Christina Corpus and the men and women of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you.
Welcome. And then next to Ryan is the headquarters Bureau Captain Matthew Fox. Many of us know Matt. Matt spent 25 years at the Daly City Police Department as a field training officer and a detective and sergeant, and a lieutenant for 7 years overseeing patrol operations, internal affairs, and community engagement. His father was in the San Francisco Police Department along with his brother, and he grew up in San Francisco and Marin County. He's married with 4 children, and his wife is an attorney, and they live in the East Bay. Currently, he is assigned to the Headquarters Patrol Bureau, which oversees the Town of Woodside, Portola Valley, Ladera Oaks, and unincorporated Redwood City.
Good evening.
To Matt's right is Captain Mark Myers. Many of us also know Mark. Mark began his law enforcement career in 2001 as a police officer in San Mateo, and then lateraled to the sheriff's office in 2005. During his career, he's enjoyed a variety of assignments in the sheriff's office, including patrol, SWAT, crime suppression unit, and corrections. And he is the previous captain for Woodside and is currently the San Carlos captain. And then all the way at the end is, and last but not least, Lieutenant Kurt Peterson. Lieutenant Peterson has spent 18 years with the California Highway Patrol. He started his career in San Bernardino and transferred to the Truckee Tahoe area in 2009. In 2016, he was promoted to sergeant and assigned to the South Lake Tahoe area before going back to the Truckee area in 2018. After being promoted to lieutenant and assigned to Woodside and the Redwood City area, that happened in January of 2024. He has also held assignments with the Bicycle Patrol Unit and Special Response Team. He's also married for 15 years and has 2 kids. I also just want to point out that we have Mary Saul Escalera with us tonight. She's sitting, raising her hand in the back. Mary Saul is the policy director and legislative aide to Ray Mueller, who I believe is also going to be joining us at some point this evening. Many of you also know Ray. He's our District 3 San Mateo County supervisor since 2023. Ray is really known for rolling up his sleeves and tackling hard problems like the unprecedented challenges brought from the storms that we all experienced in 2023. Prior to Ray's election to the Board of Supervisors, he served 10 years as a city council member, gaining re-election 3 times. And obviously, he lives in San Mateo County and with his wife and 2 school-age children. Before we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to turn it over initially to Assistant Sheriff Monahan to kick us off.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. On behalf of Sheriff Corpus, the sheriff sends her regards. We have a lot of events that go on. There's a lot going on in this county, I can tell you that much. And I know the sheriff's intent is to try to make as many different events as she can, but she's only one person. And that's why she has an executive team to support her, to help her with these. And it really makes sense for me to be here tonight because I do oversee, one of the main areas I oversee is all of our patrol bureaus. One of which is our headquarters bureau, which obviously services your area. But in addition to this patrol bureau, we have 4 additional patrol bureaus. We have our San Carlos Patrol Bureau, where Captain Myers now serves as their chief of police there. We have the Millbrae Patrol Bureau and our North County Command. So that includes the town of Millbrae and some unincorporated areas. We also have our Half Moon Bay and Coastside Patrol Bureau. So Half Moon Bay also contracts with us for police services. And then we basically the entire stretch of the coast, from the Santa Cruz County line, basically to Pacifica, with some little pockets north of that, are most of our patrol area out there on the coast. So pretty large area that we patrol out there as well. And then here in the headquarter bureau, we also, we have the areas that the mayor pointed out, as well as some unincorporated areas of Redwood City. So it really makes sense for me to come and to connect as many of these meetings as I can to really kind of understand what's going on in the communities that we serve, because they really are unique. When you look at, Half Moon Bay and compare that to, Portola Valley and Woodside and Millbrae, the basic needs are the same. The public safety needs are basically the same, but sometimes the police services that we provide might be slightly different to meet the needs of that particular community. So again, it's my great pleasure to be here talking to you all tonight. I wanted to kind of give you an overview of the sheriff's philosophy, our mission. As you know, we're a new administration, and oftentimes what comes with a new administration is just really honing in on goals and values. And this sheriff's, one of her big priorities is really connecting with the community, because we know that the more we engage with the community, the better that relationship is, the more we know about what's going on and what your needs are, the better we can serve. So that's big. That's always been a big push and priority for us because it helps us to enhance your public safety by being engaged and by being connected to the communities that we serve. And one of our mantras, we have a mission statement and a vision statement, but rather than kind of go through that, I kind of like to get to the heart of what we really kind of preach. And we have a mantra, so to speak, and that is people first, service above self. And what does that mean? And for us, it's how we gauge what we do every day, right? We think about the people that we serve. And are we putting service above our self-interests? And those self-interests could be the self-interests of the deputies working out here or particular patrol bureau. And we're always weighing that against what are the needs of the community? Are we putting the people that we serve first? Are we putting their needs number one? And when we handled this call, did we do that? And then the second piece to that is, did we provide them with the level of service that they would expect? If we treated them the way that we would expect our deputies to treat their own family and their own friends. And that's what really that means. And it's really at the heart of what we do. And that's why I mentioned it, because it's very much what the sheriff preaches. It's very much what we embody as an organization. We have another saying that we turn to a lot and we talk about a lot, and we refer to this as going beyond the call. And we see so many examples of our deputies doing this. And what I mean by this is we never take a call at just face value. And because oftentimes a call for service is symptomatic of a greater problem, right? And I can give you some examples of what I mean by how we go beyond the call for service, this philosophy that we have. And, out in our coastside bureau, we had a few drownings that involved some of our farm workers out there. And it was tragic. These were lives lost. Anytime we lose, a life is lost in a way such as that, it's tragic and it shocks the conscience of people in that area. But what we realized in digging deeper into that was that a lot of the folks that worked out there did not know how to swim. And they're working around water, they have the ocean there. And so we use that as an opportunity to leverage resources we have available to us, like our Sheriff's Activities League, and form swim schools. Now, that is completely outside the realm, right, of what you would think law enforcement does. But it served a purpose, and that purpose was if our goal is public safety, if that's what we're here to do, we're here to keep the public safe, and we identify that there's a need and a problem that directly relates to that, do we have a resource or something that we can leverage to fix that? And that's what we did in this particular instance. Another thing that we've done is we're part of what's of an initiative called Lights On. And basically what this is we know that at the end of the day, right, when someone's headlights are out or their taillights are out, it's a minor violation, but there could be some safety factors involved with that if they don't get it fixed. And so the goal oftentimes when we cite is to encourage somebody to go get that fixed, right? To make sure that they can be seen when they're traveling in the nighttime. So what Lights Out does is we understand that some folks, they run into hard times, and even paying a traffic citation is a big deal. That could be the difference between a meal on the table that night, right? And making the decision of, do I pay this, or get this fixed, or do I put a meal on the table? And in some of the areas that we serve, that's very real. It is very much a reality for some of those folks. And so what Lights Out does is it gives us the opportunity to provide someone with a voucher to go get that taillight fixed. So again, it's a way, if it's a public safety need and there's a way that we can address it that's more effective, that meets the needs of the community, we're gonna do that. And then one of the other things that we did is, we noticed that we had a challenge recruiting people. I can tell you right now, recruiting for law enforcement has been a struggle for a lot of law enforcement agencies. There are a lot of different theories out there as to why that is. Some people think it's a generational thing. Some people feel that it's some of the negative press that there's been around law enforcement over the past few years. Hard to say exactly what the exact reason is. I think it's probably a combination of all those things. But we need to be more creative in order to make sure we get the right people coming into this office, because, you know, we need to make sure we have folks out there to serve you and to fill those beats that we have in the different areas of town that we serve. And so the sheriff formed a women's boot camp because we knew that one of the sectors we were missing was our female deputies. And we needed to recruit more of them, but we knew that some of that challenge was that some of them were intimidated by the physical fitness standards, only to realize that most of them can do it. They just need to go out and get coached a little bit, and then they're fine. And just realize, you know, that they have the ability to do it and build their confidence. So that's another way that we looked at a problem and said, okay, what's this symptomatic of? How do we get to the core of it? So I only explain this to you because we really empower our captains. When they look at problems in your bureaus, that's the way we want them to examine those problems. What does this call mean? How do we get to the root of it? How do we fix it? Whether it's a burglary, whether it's any other type of crime, and or in some cases, a quality of life issue. Is it something that we have the ability to address? And if we do, what can we resource and leverage to make that happen? And so you guys have a fantastic bureau chief here in Captain Fox. You guys were lucky because you had a really good streak. You had Captain Myers before that, who again was very, very heavily involved in this community. And that's what we want. We really encourage, you know, they are your representatives for the sheriff's office. And so we really want them to do these types of things. So I'm so glad that Captain Fox was able to collaborate with the mayor and the city manager to hold this town hall. So, you know, we can ask those questions and make sure we're doing the kind of policing that you want to see in your community, because we're taking notes of all this stuff and we're using this to help drive our mission and our goals as we set strategic goals for the year. That community feedback is important to us. And so this is one of a really valuable way to collect that feedback, is to hear directly from you all. So that's one of the things that we do. We really challenge them. Hey, how are you engaging your communities? When there's a crime trend, what are you doing about it? We meet weekly. Every week we have crime analysts that analyze the crimes that we have, that look at them and examine them and try to connect them to other crimes in the area. We know for certain, especially when it comes to property crimes, the crimes that happen here are happening in other cities, and oftentimes it's involving the same groups of people, the same individuals. And they don't just hit Woodside and Petrola Valley, they're hitting Atherton, they're hitting other parts in the county. So we know they're all interconnected. And so we're meeting once a week to talk about these issues. What's going on in your bureau? What are the crime trends? What are we doing to fix it? And I can tell you that I know that each one of our captains is constantly pushing their folks to come up with innovative ways to address these things. So that is really kind of, again, at the core of what we do. We tailor our services to meet the public safety needs and interests of each of those communities we serve. And so I know that you guys have some unique concerns and interests here. And again, by channeling that through Captain Fox, we hope that when you're interacting with our folks, that they're meeting your expectations. That's what we want. So again, thank you all for being here. I'll be here for a little bit to answer some questions, and I'm really happy to turn it over to Captain Fox.
All right, good evening. On behalf of the sheriff, I'd just like to say thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's late. It's a work day. More importantly, I'd like to thank Jen and Kevin for putting this together. I took over headquarters bureau. It was really important for me to really engage the community. I kind of grew up in that world. So this was one way that we can do that. And what I'd like to do tonight is go through kind of like an agenda item that we did and save the questions for the end, because I think we'll get more value out of this by not stating statistics or whatnot, but actually answering your questions. So if we can do that, I think that would be fantastic. I'll go through some of the stuff. There's a handout at the back if you did not get that, where some of the statistics and some of the data that I was able to put together for tonight's town hall will answer a lot of your questions beforehand, but I can also elaborate on those as well. So without further ado, I think we'll start. So the first question that was posed to the sheriff's office was recent trends in crime and residential burglaries in Woodside and surrounding communities. So I'll talk about the 3 points first, and I'll direct you kind of to the data that we were able to ascertain. But in November of 2023 and January of 2024, there was an increase in residential burglaries. And I think that was felt by the residents of Woodside, which led to some other things and some patrol responses from the sheriff's office. I can tell you that it wasn't isolated just to Woodside. I can tell you that Santa Clara County, I can tell you the town of Atherton, other parts of San Mateo County, as well as Marin were affected at a much higher rate than the town of Woodside. If you look at some of the statistics we pulled up in regards to residential burglaries, we kind of gave you a glimpse from 2020 to 2023. As you can see, what was happening in 2020, 2021, and 2022 was COVID. There was a lot more people inside of their homes. And that kind of factored into not only a countywide decrease in residential burglaries, but also a statewide increase. As we started to come out of the pandemic, people started to go back to work, and you can see an increase in residential burglaries in not only the town of Woodside, Portola Valley. We're not going to go too much into other places, but you can see kind of consistently the same. But Woodside was majorly affected by residential burglaries in 2023. I was just able to get the statistics for Woodside specific today because I really wanted to bring forth the statistics for February. And then I'll talk about why we think there's a decrease in that, and I'll kind of reassure you to why there was a decrease. So in January of 2024, we had 3 residential burglaries. And in February of 2024, this last month, we had 0. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about why that is. So in looking at the data and also being familiar with Woodside and so forth, during the time of Christmas, a lot of people leave their residences. And kind of the consistent themes with the residential burglaries that occurred in December, not only in Woodside, Portola Valley, Ladera Oaks, all throughout the county, was people were not home. And as we all know, when people go on vacation and people leave their house vacant, it's a prime opportunity for individuals, a small amount of people that are involved in criminal activity to really target homes. I can tell you in late November through January and through February, the sheriff's message, filtered through down to the bureau captains was have kind of a proactive approach in addressing residential burglaries. A lot of stuff doesn't make the news, but I can tell you as the bureau captain, under the sheriff's vision, they directed us to do a lot more patrols and a lot more operations to really curb that behavior. What the town of Woodside doesn't know, and I know I've communicated it to Jen and Kevin, was we did many operations in the town of Woodside. In a 1-week period in the town of Woodside, we chased 8 vehicles out of the town of Woodside that were either called in or located in the town of Woodside by either unmarked deputies or extra patrols in the area. That never makes the news, right? A lot of times it's alarming for residents to hear, but we're bounded not only by policy but also by legislation, and unfortunately, it's a property crime, and so the criminals that are involved in this type of activity have kind of got versed in what the laws are, and kind of put in perspective for you. If a deputy gets called on a suspicious vehicle and you report, hey, they just broke into my house, or I'm getting an alarm, this is the car or whatnot. We'll go into that. But we start chasing that vehicle, which we did 8 times in a matter of 7 days. We cannot chase that vehicle because it's a property crime. It's not a violent crime. And so we have to weigh public safety with legislation and policy to say, hey, look, is there a risk to the public for what the crime is? And it's hard because people don't realize that just because you get behind the vehicle, they think, well, why can't you chase them? But legislation does not allow us, and policy does not allow police officers to chase for property crimes. It could be $10 or $500,000 worth of property from your residence. And so it's kind of hard to grasp at times. It's frustrating for us because we have the vehicle there. But it's important for you to know that. So if we do not get them in the act of coming outside your residence, able to block them in, if they drive away, we're really limited unless we have some more information to bring it to some type of level that we can chase the car. And I know that's hard sometimes to hear, but I think it's important to communicate that to you because that's a frustration that we feel as well. So when we talk about burglaries and some of the things that the sheriff's office does, I don't want to go into too much detail in an open forum, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes that the sheriff's department and the town of Woodside gets that the sheriff has allocated. You get the full weight of the sheriff's office. And when I say that, and I grew up in San Francisco, I come from a family of cops. I did 25 years in Daly City. The amount of resources that are thrown at the town of Woodside is profound. And when we talk about, what contracts say, 2 deputies and so forth, or whatever the contract allocates for the town of Woodside, I'll give you one quick case study. So in November, in that that big 20 number in 2023, probably 8 of those were towards the end of the year. And so the full weight of the sheriff's office came into the agency. We looked at it and we were able to identify a subject that was responsible for probably all of them. And kind of the fallback for us is we solve a lot of cases and now we have to prove them. And so I don't know if you follow Nextdoor or some of the press releases, but one of those individuals, we linked to probably 9 of those cases. Was arrested. You know, he's innocent until proven guilty, but the amount of hours that were allocated to the town of Woodside by the Investigations Bureau, by saturation patrols, by surveillance, by using the full weight of the data sharing that we do throughout the county was profound. And I know I provided that to Jen to kind of give a perspective of what we're doing, because behind the scenes, we can't really, you know, broadcast what we're doing, because what we're trying to do is not only recover your property, but also send a message that San Mateo County, especially Woodside, is not a place to come. And so from late November to December, when that happened, we started to see a decrease. And I can tell you that the efforts of the sheriff and the direction, you know, in the month of February, there were no burglaries, residential burglaries in the town of Woodside. There's a decrease. And I can tell you that there's a small percentage of individuals that are involved in this, and they go to various areas. There was a 2-week period that there was a city in Santa Clara County that was hit 9 times, you know, and that's right across the border. Right? So what are we doing different that maybe they're not doing? Right? So it's really a proactive approach. And that's really what I want to emphasize to you. I know on the surface, it's alarming because you haven't seen these kind of numbers in 3 years. And there's some reasons for that with COVID. But I can tell you that the proactive approach from the sheriff's office has really started to see this go down. We've identified individuals. There's investigations still going to this day behind the scenes. So I really want to put that in perspective for you as it relates to statistics, but we're seeing a general decline because there is a small group of people, and they go where there's no enforcement. They go where the neighbors aren't calling anymore. There's certain strategies that they use in order to target certain areas, and I don't want to go too much into that, but this is a sophisticated operation. These people aren't just driving through Woodside and saying, oh, look at this house. I mean, they're doing their homework. There's certain things that they deploy in order to see if the area is hot, if you will, if it's under surveillance, right? And so we'll talk about some of the things you can do to protect yourselves. But I can tell you, since I came over to the sheriff's office, the communication in the town of Woodside and Portola Valley, and I'll tell you some things that we've done, has increased substantially, right? You are your best witnesses for the sheriff's office. You are the best tool for us to curb that behavior. So I'll speed up a little bit more in regards to statistics. Collaborated data sharing. The sheriff's office has many platforms that we share information. We and Captain Myers will talk about ALPR, how that's kind of how we collaborate with other agencies with that information. But I can tell you that the information sharing that we have is very, very good. So Atherton speaks with us. We speak with Santa Clara. We speak with Oakland. We speak with Danville. I live in the East Bay, and this problem is in the East Bay as well. And it's in Marin. So I just want to kind of put that in perspective for you. It's on the decrease, and I hope it stays that way. And the efforts that we put forth starting in November have really started to curb some of that. And I can tell you behind the scenes, there's a lot of work going in to not only the town of Woodside in the focus of enforcement, but also apprehension. Fair enough? All right, we'll go to the next one. What actions the sheriff's office is taking to address crime? We talked about saturation patrols based upon data. When you crunch the data, you find certain periods of time in which crimes are occurring, days of the week, certain entry points that they're going to come into the town of Woodside. There's only so many ways to get to Woodside, right? So there's certain strategic things that we do as the sheriff's office, not only responding to calls for service, but also trying to prevent calls for service. And I can tell you that the deputies that come up here actually care about Woodside. They understand a sense of service. You know, why did they get into this job and who they do this job for? We pick specific deputies that not only grew up either in this area, but they also have a fondness for Woodside and what Woodside's needs are. Does that make sense? So we've adjusted our shift briefings because a lot of times when we have shift briefings, there could be a lull in enforcement. So we have adjusted that since November, where they'll start at different times because people are a creature of habit, right? So criminals are a creature of habit. They find certain areas, so we have to change it up on our end. And most importantly, just the attention and the focus that the sheriff's office has really brought to Woodside. And I think Jen and Kevin can attest to this. You know, the sense of kind of calm has kind of come over a little bit. We got that rush, and then we identified one individual, and they kind of started petering off and another crew. So I just want to put you at ease a little bit in relationship to the data. In relationship to preventing crime and burglaries, we have a brochure that we just created. We put it out to the back. If you want to take that with you, it gives you some suggestions. I can tell you, I've been the victim of residential burglary. Yes, me, right? So you would think, wow, right? So I understand the effect it has on you. The effect it has on your neighbors and your family and everything else. So we're not immune to that either. I can tell you when I leave my house for 2 days, I will leave my TV on and you can see it from my big window. I leave lights on. I have timers on my lights. You know, you update your security system. There's certain things you can do, and you also have to get out and talk to your neighbors, right? That's the most important thing. We don't talk to our neighbors anymore. Maybe the Woodside's a little bit different, but in a city or wherever you grew up, most people don't talk to their neighbors. So a big thing is keep your lights on, security, be the best witness that you can if you do see something. I want to get away from the days of seeing something and not calling it in because you don't want to be labeled something that you're not, right? You guys are your best witnesses in this neighborhood. You know the cars that are normally in your neighborhood. You know that something looks out of place. I can't teach cops intuition, right? I can't teach that. And as residents of Woodside, if you feel something's out of place, that's why we're here. You can call us. It doesn't mean anything. No one's going to read into it. And I can tell you that based upon kind of that change of approach in the town of Woodside and Portola Valley, the decrease is happening, right? Because people are starting to call. There's nothing worse than a deputy going out to a house after the fact, knocking on the door and say, hey, unfortunately, your neighbor house was broken into. Were you home today? Yeah, I was home. Did you see anything out of place? Well, you know, a guy came to my door and I opened it and he asked for Timmy or Bobby. And I was like, oh, well, Bobby doesn't live here. And they, oh, I must be lost. What were they doing? They were casing the house. So if somebody was home, they went to the next house. If that resident, they asked, they go, well, why didn't you call? Well, I just didn't want to call, you know, and it's unfortunate, right? But it's a sign of the times. But I want to get out of that practice because if it seems out of place, no one's getting lost in Woodside looking for Bobby. Okay? Okay? That's like a clue in like detective land. We will pull individuals over that have been sent in to kind of drive the neighborhood to see if anybody's there. You'll pull them over and the deputy say, hey, I pulled you over, expired registration, run a stop sign or whatever. And they say, oh, hey, I pulled you over for A, B, or C. Where are you headed to today? I'm lost, right? And then you look and they have this on their dash, right? And you go, no one's lost anymore, right? You don't get lost in Woodside. And, you know, you'll go through the normal procedure. You know, where are you from? They're not from here. And sure enough, what happens? Another deputy say, okay, they're advised, they leave. And they just go right back out the way they came, right? Is that a preventive measure? Absolutely. Does that happen every day? Every single day, right? There's a big ROI in the town of Woodside, right? They're not going to Daly City, right? For whatever reason, right? So some things you can do. A big thing for you can do if you live in the town of Woodside and you would like a deputy to come up and give you an assessment of your house to say, hey, look, if I get nervous, but I have tons of woods, we can go up there and give you an assessment. Say, you know, what I would do if I was to break into this house, I can tell you where I would come into your house. Maybe clean these shrubs a little bit or do this or do that. We do that all the time in the town of Woodside and we afford that to you at the sheriff's office, right? So don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, can you send someone up? You know, we can't tell you what alarm company to go to, right? But we can give you some suggestions on, hey, this is what I would do if I lived here. We know how criminals think. And so we can give you a criminal perspective if I was to go. This is why I'm not going to your house, sir, to break in. You have a neighbor who looks directly at your house or whatever, right? But they can give you some suggestions. So I offer that to you, and I think it's a really good resource that's underutilized. You know, video surveillance, retention, and sharing. If you have an alarm system, turn it on, right? We've gone to more than we'd like to say that they have a really nice alarm system and they didn't turn it on, right? So it's not an investigative tool that we can use if you don't turn it on. If you have it, you have a lot of valuables in your house, you pay $30 a month for your alarm system, turn it on. We're more than happy to respond. If you have video, make sure you understand how the system works because that information can be very, very critical in apprehension. A lot of times we'll go out to a residence and we'll say, well, I have video, I don't know how to use it. Because if you had a camera shot of a car, we could start putting things to work really, really fast. And we've done that and then found cars located in the county and we go from there. So some things to kind of think about. Another thing, anybody here from the Glens? So I'm on a WhatsApp for the Glens neighborhood. So if you're in the Glens, you get to text me whenever you want. Hopefully it's not a ride home one night because I'm not going to pick you up. The black and white taxi? No. So it's a way that we can communicate, right? It kind of started off small. They added me as a captain. Am I required to do that? No. Right? And why do I do that? Because I actually care. Right? So it's a way that they can communicate to me directly. They say, hey, there's this card. They'll send me a screenshot. I can do some research on it. We identified the paper guy drives way too fast in the Glens. Right? We got him speeding on video. And when he denied it, he's like, you're right. I'll slow down. Right? Little things like that, but a tree falls down, public safety, the deputy goes up. I'll give you, and that's just a WhatsApp, right? We can't have one for every neighborhood because I have 4 kids that like to text and I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? So in this app, we have it here and then Woodland Hills. Anybody? So they just started their own too, right? It's a way to communicate, kind of have, I'm not on it 24/7, but it's a way that you can communicate the sheriff's office with some of your concerns. I'll give you one little cool thing that happened. They said, hey, look, someone stole my flag from a little $5 flag outside the gates of my house in I think it was in Woodside. And everyone got on their cameras. Like, oh, I have it. And who was it? It was the Amazon driver. He's driving out. He liked the flag. He took it and threw it on his front seat. Simple. They communicate that to me. Then we do some follow-up. He doesn't work at Amazon anymore. But it's a way that you can have kind of a little bit more contact with the sheriff's office, right? Because everybody is busy. You know what I mean? You being here tonight, it means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to the town, but it's a way to kind of say, you know what? That's a good idea. The more you talk to us, the more we can help you out on that. I know we're stressed for time, but I want to get through this real quick. What do you do if you're a victim or a witness of suspicious activity? If you see something, say something. Talk to your neighbors. If you're going on vacation, tell your neighbors. Right? Say, call me on my phone. I'm going on vacation. I do that as well. Do not engage suspects if possible. If you see somebody, call us. Yes, we're going to have a fast response time. You know what I mean? They could be on another call, their break or whatnot. If possible, try not to engage. These are bad people. You know, these are criminals for a reason, and we don't want you. It's property at the end of the day. We have insurance for the most part. I can't tell you what to do in your own home. I can just tell you that if possible, don't engage. Be a very good witness. And I'll leave you with this, and I'm going to let Captain Mark Myers just give you a little update on the ALPRs and how the cameras work. But I really think it's important that you guys have an opportunity to come up and ask some specific pointed questions to kind of put you at ease a little bit about what the sheriff's office is doing. Know that the sheriff's office, under not only my command, but every bureau commander's command, we really push this message down that we have to provide service. And it's something that my father instilled in me. He was a police officer for 34 years in San Francisco. We can't forget why we get into this job and who we do this job for. And when I came over to the sheriff's office, I made sure that everybody understands that although you are an employee of the sheriff's office, you are a resident of the town of Woodside. These deputies spend 40 to 80 hours a week in the town of Woodside. And so when you change the mindset with some of these officers and deputies to say, hey, look, you're a resident of this county, they kind of, the light switch goes off of like, oh, wow, you know, if you're here 80 hours in Woodside, as far as I'm concerned, you pretty much live here. You know, you're going to get to know those people in the community. And so, and the people that we have assigned here, if you know some of the deputies that we have assigned here, they love Woodside. You always know where they're at. They'll talk your ear off. They don't ever want to move anywhere else. So they're happy in Woodside. So I'll leave you with that because I really want to have an opportunity for you guys to have questions. But I'll turn it over to Captain Myers, who's very familiar with not only the ALPR system, how the system works, and then you can direct a lot of questions later.
All right, thanks, Matt. So I'll be, Kevin, I sent you an email. Okay, yeah. So just really quickly to summarize it, the town of Woodside, probably for what now, 6 months, Kevin, has had 17 flock cameras up and running. During that time, we've had several success stories, and I'll just hit on 3 of them right now. One case involved a vehicle that was identified by the flock camera. It was also associated with 5 other residential burglaries in the county. We were able to use that data from flock, work with other agencies, locate the suspect, and arrest him. And he was also linked to another residential burglary in the Emerald Hills. Another one we had was another burglary. Five residential burglaries this subject was linked to. He was driving a stolen car with stolen plates on it out of Oakland. Using the flock camera, we're able to identify that car and that vehicle, work with Contra Costa County and Santa Clara County, and arrest him. So again, without the flock camera, none of this would have been possible. And there was one final other success story that we've had since the limited time the camera's been in use here, and that was a residential burglary again. The vehicle was identified by the flock. Suspect had stolen plates out of San Jose. They were able to work it backwards, find out who stole the plates by working with San Jose PD, and ultimately get him into custody. So in this brief time, you've already had 4 or 5 good success stories where without the flock cameras, probably would have nothing. We feel so strongly about LPRs and especially flock cameras. We're expanding throughout the unincorporated areas of the county. We're adding 80 more cameras. Board of Supervisors supported this. The sheriff supported this. So we're expanding our flock coverage to all the unincorporated areas in the county. Currently, there's probably only 2 or 3 cities inside the county that don't have some sort of LPR coverage. So it's just turning out to be industry standard, especially with the staffing shortage we have. It makes it much easier for our detectives to investigate cases, come up with good leads, and arrest suspects by using the ALPR data. One thing unique to Flock is their transparency page. You could scroll down a little.
Just for the benefit of everybody out there, Flock is the company that we contract with. They own the license plate readers.
Yes.
So just wanted to make sure that we put that out there.
So one of the nice things about Flock and what makes them unique is their dedication to transparency. So as you can see, this is a transparency portal where anyone can go online and get this data. Currently, the town retains the data, or not the town, Flock retains the data for 60 days, shows how many cameras they have. It shows an external organization with access. Currently, that's Redwood City. They had a investigation they needed to access our cameras on. They had a specific request for a specific time frame, looking for a specific vehicle to see if it was in our area. And based on that, that's when we will grant them access to access the cameras. So it's very strict as far as who we share the data with. As you can see, we have a hot list where we can upload stolen vehicles, vehicles associated with missing people, a number of things. And as you can see, in the last 30 days, there were 123 hits on that hot list. So combination of stolen vehicles and other maybe vehicles that have felony wants on them, where the cameras can detect them and alert the deputy, so then we can kind of vector in and try and locate the vehicle.
Captain Myers, can I ask you a question about that number
Sure.
and the number above it? Because the numbers seem huge and it's important for people to understand. Does that mean a vehicle that's on a hot list has been detected by at least 1 camera in those 30 days? Or if it's moving through town and goes by 3, does it show up 3 times?
Thanks, Heavy. Yeah, and I was going to go back to the other number. So that, it could mean it's getting hit by multiple cameras. So we're not able to differentiate how many cameras actually hit that just from this simple transparency page, but that is the possibility of why the number is so high. As we're driving through town, that stolen vehicle is pinging on several different cameras, and that's why you'll see the increased number. And then also too, the total vehicles detected in the last 30 days, it gives you that. So this is a platform and a page unique to Flock. You guys can access this, and it's a great way to show how transparent Flock is, as well as the town with the LPR data. So that's all I got.
Hey, Captain, can you just elaborate a little bit about why that's important? With 123 hits, right? It's probably just not 1 car, right? And how the system is used to kind of re-engineer, and go backwards with the vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If I could add to that, and maybe just a real basic explanation of how the cameras work.
Sure.
I think I've gotten some.
Sure. I wasn't too sure how savvy. I know we've had a lot of Flock meetings or LPR meetings. So again, Flock is the company that was selected by the town to contract for their ALPRs. And it's pretty much the main company that does every one in the county here too, and pretty much the Bay Area. Flock is unique because their cameras have the ability to actually detect a car. So unlike the old license plate readers that could just detect a license plate, Flock actually can analyze the car. So how this benefits us is if they put stolen plates on, or as you see people take plates off, we can actually say, hey, if there's a burglary at a residence and the next door neighbor says, hey, I saw a yellow Honda Accord here, that's not from the neighborhood. We can go back, search in that specific time frame, and actually search for a yellow Honda Accord. And then that's how the flock system will actually give us several results from that. It can be as unique as there was you could say a bicycle rack on the back or something like that. And we can search specifically for that. So that's the uniqueness of the technology that Flock uses, and that's why they are selected by so many cities and other agencies.
I can add in maybe too, just to, Captain Myers has done a lot in terms of kind of shepherding this for the town of Woodside and really understands the technology. I think something that comes up quite a bit is, right, is this Big Brother, right? Is this something that's capturing data and capturing personal information about you? And the answer to that is absolutely not. It does not capture any personal identifying information. Does not. That is, if anyone says that it does, that is an inaccurate statement because it does not. And that's just, we want to make sure that people understand this. So basically what it does is that the captain pointed out is it captures an image of the vehicle and the license plate. The reason why Flock is unique, and we talk about Flock, there are a lot of different vendors out there that provide this services. Motorola and some other ones do it as well. When I was in the town of Tiburon, we had ALPRs from Motorola. So different vendor, but similar technology. They capture the license plate and they compare that to a database. So if that license plate is entered into the system as a stolen vehicle, it's going to hit. If the person driving that vehicle, the registered owner, is wanted for some kind of crime, it could hit. In some cases, if that person is a missing person that's in danger, somebody that we need to locate that could be endangered, one of your loved ones is missing, and they're attached to that, that could hit on that license plate to help locate that missing person. So those are what those hot list things. Oftentimes they are stolen vehicles or stolen license plates, but the reason why capturing the vehicle is so important is because, as we say, the folks that engage in crime, they're sophisticated. They're sophisticated. And it's a shame sometimes because they're so sophisticated. You're like, man, if you put that towards like an honest living, you could probably really do well. But they do things like they learn that, oh, they've got license plate cameras. So in order to defeat that, we're going to steal a license plate off a similar vehicle and we're going to slap it on our car right before we go break it in while that person's sleeping. So they're not going to wake up and report their license plate missing. And how often do you check your license plate every day? Do you check your license plate to make sure it matches up? I know I probably don't. And I know that this stuff happens, right? So they know that. And so they'll take a license plate. They have a Honda Accord. They'll go find another Honda Accord that looks kind of similar. They'll pull the license plate off. They'll swap it out. That way, if the ALPR hits on it, the information's bad. It's going to lead them back to an innocent person, right? So that being said, what Flock does is it'll sometimes, if they don't match the right vehicle up, right, the Flock will show, wait a minute, that's a Honda. This is actually a Toyota, right? And the Flock can help identify that. But again, it does not capture personal information. All it does is capture the license plate, and it runs that license plate against a database. It's not capturing information about you. It's not capturing information about where you're going. It can capture you and place you at a particular place at a point in time, but the only way that's going to be something that we use is if you're involved in a crime, and we need to use that to investigate. Other than that, it's just information that's captured and then purged. So I think that's kind of an important distinction. And the one other thing I just want to add about this is we are prohibited by California law to share any of this information with federal immigration enforcement agencies. So we do not share any of our Flock information for immigration purposes or with any agencies that engage in that. So we're very, very strict on who we share it with. Again, because this is a tool and we want to ensure that we use it properly, right? And that we're not infringing on people's property, that privacy, that we're using it the way it was intended to be used, which is to help and assist in capturing people. And the last kind of anecdotal story I'll tell you is in South City recently, they had an individual that went to a church, pulled out an assault rifle, and opened fire on this church. Now, luckily, no one was inside the church at the time. And, there was only few people, no one got hit, thank God. And this individual took off. Well, when he did that, within 10 minutes, a license plate reader was able to give them an identity on someone, so they were able to locate the individual. So in that case, it worked out to be preventative in nature before this individual went and did something else. I know we got some questions probably about the ALPR. So.
Can we hold the questions just till the lieutenant can talk with CHP and then I'll go back?
Yeah, Yep, sounds good.
If you want to just prompt him on what you would like him to address a little bit.
All right, well, first of all, thank you so much for that really helpful description of the license plate readers and the privacy. That was really helpful. I think we'll just go down to Lieutenant Kurt Peterson. I think you were going to talk about speeding in general in Woodside and also the efforts to curb speeding at the Four Corners area.
Sure.
Or whatever you want to talk about.
I'll give you a brief rundown. So I'm assigned to the Redwood City office, which covers this area. So we cover all traffic enforcement from on the freeways. So Highway 10 or US or 101, 280, as well as Highway 1 on the coast. So we have a very large area. We're considered a fairly large office within the state. We're located at approximately 80 uniformed officers, but we only have about 50 currently staffed. We are not immune to the hiring issues as well as part of law enforcement. Now, we do have help on the way. We have approximately, I believe, 8 or 9 officers that are currently going through our FTO program, so they're being trained right now. They're in various different stages of that program, and that's about a 3-month program. So as they complete their FTO program, they'll go out on their own, and that'll give us actually more bodies to help with patrol. We base our staffing on call volume. Unfortunately, the freeways just have a lot of call volume. There's a lot of cars that are on there. That does not mean we do not assign people out here. We absolutely do. And we actually adjust our staffing on the weekends to send more officers out in this area. Because obviously the Woodside area, Half Moon Bay, and the coast, that population dramatically increases on the weekends. So more in-view patrol, which does assist with lowering speeds.
And if I could just add, I'm in communication with the commander of the Redwood City, with the CHP Redwood office. And whenever we get a request from either Kevin or Jen, or we see some stuff that shows up, he is more than happy to send resources up there. So we work in collaboration with the CHP. And I can tell you that just, I think a week and a half ago, we did some special enforcement up at the corners there and issued bike citations, moving violations. I know the CHP was part of that as well. So just so you know, we're not on an island by ourselves with the sheriff's office and enforcement up there for the town of Woodside per se. The CHP does send resources up there periodically throughout the coast, but also up in that corners because of the complaints.
All right. I think we're going to open it now for Q&A. So we'll take questions in the room. And for the benefit of those on Zoom, if you're in the room and you have a question, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone, that way those in the Zoom room can hear you as well. Please come up with your questions, and we'll also take questions from the Zoom room as well.
So if you're on Zoom and you want to ask a question, raise your hand and we will get to you.
Melissa, come up to the microphone.
Thank you for the repeat performance. I'm from Portola Valley. Thank you for having me at the Woodside Town Hall. I am curious with flock cameras, if it's not a stolen car and it's not a stolen license plate or flip license plate, and it's been involved in seen linked to a burglary, do you have any rights to look into that car and find it? Or you have to wait till it's really like a stolen car with a stolen license plate or involved in a violent crime of some kind?
Well, in order to access flock, we have to have some sort of criminal violation. That's part of the security process and security login. I just can't simply say, hey, I want to look for a yellow.
No, but I'm asking if burglaries are part of that category.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I thought you could not pursue cars. You could not pursue evidence if there was no sign of the car being tail light out
in
or
that
license
aspect, to
plate.
clarify what Captain Fox says, in our policy, we can chase for residential burglaries.
No, but I didn't mean chase, I meant informationally chase.
Informationally chase?
Yeah, with the flock information.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Melissa Petkov. Thank you, first of all, for all of your service. You are hugely appreciated and not invisible. And so my question tonight is related to one of the recent incidents that happened, a residential burglary here in Woodside. And I think the most concerning aspect of it was the response time, which I understand, the challenge of preventing crime, but responding to it's kind of a different animal altogether. And so I think the reasoning that was given at the time was a coverage kind of issue that we had here in Woodside. Now we're coming up on a contract renewal, and I think everyone's just interested to make sure that whatever we do on a go-forward basis is actually going to solve the problem that we all perceive we have, because it's the only actionable moment that we have. So I imagine when you're putting together your models, there is some sort of a magic metric, if you will, of incidence, right, versus population density, geographic coverage, and voila, you have a certain number of officers that you think should be serving in a given location. And my question is, where are we relative to where you guys think we should be to change the trends that we have? Is it even a factor? And how do we compare to other areas around us, like Atherton, because I understand they have their own kind of different model, and I'm curious, where they are in terms of the officer coverage, and then of course Portola Ladera are easy comps for us. Thank you.
So I can elaborate a little bit on that, and just going through. So in the town of Woodside, and I know I brought this up at Portola Valley as well. So the response times kind of go like this. So when a deputy's going to a house as an alarm goes off, right? So you have first, how did you set the alarm system up? Do they call you first, or they automatically call the sheriff's office, right? And sometimes they'll call the homeowner maybe 2 times, leave a message, wait a couple minutes, and that's something you can change. You say, do not call me, directly call the sheriff's office. So there's a delay there. So it's strategic, and I don't want to go too much detail, but imagine if we're responding to a residence and maybe they're on a call that they have to break from, like, hey, ma'am, I have to come back and do this. I have to go to alarm call. 90% of the alarm calls are false alarms, right? That's pretty much the number. So they factor that in. But when we go up, when we tackle Woodside or Portola Valley, and the captain can chime in as well, but there's certain things that we do because the probability of us pulling up and they're in the driveway coming out of your residence is very slim. When I look at the reports and I do kind of analysis, they're in your house from literally under 3 minutes, 3.5. If they're in there for a long period of time, in our world, it's kind of a clue that somebody knows that you were out of town, right? And so when we had that, absolutely. The majority of them, and I don't know if I'm talking about the same one, but I know in Portola Valley, why did it take so long, right? So what happens is that if we know there are only certain ways to get into Woodside, we not only notify some of the allied agencies that they might come out into those communities, but there's certain points that we want to get to immediately. There's going to be one deputy that will respond to the residents, right? And they'll get information as they're going to the scene, like, hey, look, broken glass. That deputy is not going to go inside that house or search that house by himself. If we have other deputies strategically at certain locations to see if there's a speeding car, if there's anything out of the ordinary as they're responding to the residents, because we know, I've been doing this 26 years. And in 26 years I was a burglary detective. I responded to many calls. One time in my career did I ever pull up to the house where they were walking out of the house with stolen merchandise. And the only reason that is because the neighbor had called about 3 minutes prior, seeing the car pull up and say, wow, that looks weird. They're out of town, and called us before they went in. In 26 years, one time. So knowing that, we're looking for the car that's speeding away from the scene, the car that's blacked out, the car that kind of looks out of place. I mean, and deputies have intuition, they have insight, right? They go, this kind of looks out of place. Someone kind of avoiding eye contact as they're driving up through the neighborhood. So there's a certain strategic response that we do. So you may not see somebody going into your house for 13 minutes. Once the deputy gets on scene and says, hey, look, I need some more units. I need another unit. He'll pull up on his phone and say, hey, give me the cross street. Give me what backs up to this. Because if I was a burglar, I'm coming in that way. So you may not know, you might say, oh, my cameras only saw one deputy. He just sat outside. You don't realize that we have certain deputies at certain points of entry in the town of Woodside, and we also have people setting up perimeter on that house. So in the rare chance that we catch the rookie in the house and they go outside the back and they start running, we have somebody there. So there's kind of, I know it's tough to hear, but with the resources you have, I know in the last residential burglary, there were 7 deputies up here strategically placed. We have a plan to respond to things in Portola Valley and Woodside. And so, and it's kind of a complaint. Well, you didn't get here for 18 minutes. Well, there was a reason why. They don't tell you. Maybe we chased a car. They got behind a car that didn't stop. Maybe related, may not, right? So people start directing it towards them. They're not at your house anymore, right? Unless you're inside the house, in the closet doing that, we're not coming straight to your front door to do that. So there's a lot of things behind the scene, and we change briefing hours because it's easy to look up when we work, when shifts end and so forth to kind of curb that. And we want presence out there. And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that. You know, the month of February, we had none, you know, and we've kind of got to this point where we had this increase. We arrested some individuals. We had collaboration with other agencies. We've identified a pretty good chunk of individuals involved, and we started to see this slow decrease, right? And we're trying to continue that. But in response to response time, I totally get it, but we have a certain way in which we respond to those calls like we would active shooter. You know, that we're going in, we're not waiting, right? Residential burglaries. I hope that answered your question a little bit. Yeah.
So just to hear you, I guess, say it in your opinion, I mean, hearing you say, you don't think we have a coverage issue here in Woodside. So everything kind of maps to your ideal model in terms of, I know recruiting is hard, but the resources that we're investing are aligned with the outcomes that we want.
Yeah, and I can tell you in comparing models of other cities and coming from a municipality, you know what I mean, the response time, like say per daily city, I think that you're right where you need to be. I think we had an upsurge, but we were on the low end of that upsurge, not only in the county, but multiple 6 Bay Area counties. You're on the low end, but it's shocking because it's such a tight knit community and we haven't seen that before. So we think, you know, it kind of shocks the system. But I can tell you, living in Danville and Alamo area, it's even crazier, right? And I'm like, what? And they have more deputies assigned to Danville, right? So I think the coverage is really, really good. I think we have a certain core group of individuals that we've identified or we scared off or whatnot. So I think we're right where we need to be with the amount of coverage that you guys have. The reality is you can't rely on a police department to prevent the crime every day, right? 24 hours a day. Right? If they're determined to get to your house and do that, they're going to do everything they can, or we're going to try to prevent it on one end. But I hope that answered your question a little bit.
What could have happened with that? Was it like a cold residential burglary where someone came home and said, oh, my house got broken into? So there might have been another priority call. Like it's not a call where like, hey, there's someone in my house, they broke into it. It could be, hey, I came home from vacation and my house got broken into. I've already walked through the house. So when we hear that, there could be another priority call we have to go. There could be another alarm call we have to go to or something like that. That might be the circumstance that happened with you or the person you know is where it's a cold residential burglary. A lot of times people will call 911, say, hey, my house got broken into. I just got back from vacation. I've walked the whole house. No one's in the house. Well, we're not going to roll lights and sirens to that. So that could be.
That's a good point.
So just to that very point, so then, but how do you know, right, when the alarm is going off that there's not a violent crime happening there on the property? That would be my concern.
Yeah, so I think the distinction that Catherine brought up was like the cold one where you come home for vacation, you've gone a week, the window's shattered, you walk through your house, it kind of takes a lower priority. We'll get there, right? But the alarm company calls, says, hey, depending on the information provided by the alarm company, kind of dictates a response. They say, hey, we have a resident who's on their cameras, someone is breaking in their house, we have shattered glass in the back. We're coming to your house pretty fast.
The cavalry's coming.
Cavalry's coming, but we're also going to strategic points because we know the data and history and experience knows that they're in there 2.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if they're breaking from a call, they could be on a domestic violence call. They could be on something, an accident or helping somebody. They're like, okay, they try to wrap this up real quick. We got to go. And we're starting everybody else, the full force. We're starting people from the coast. We're starting, if CHP's in the area, hey, can you start some units up to this area? Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of take a judgment call, and it's kind of on the supervisor to kind of do that response, but they know what that response is, and it's triggered by the information provided. Because if we go code 3 lights and sirens, and the deputy crashes and hurts somebody, you know what I mean? Why did you do that, right? So there's a lot of restrictions too. They have to factor in what we're doing, and all that comes into play, especially in 2024. Yeah. Deputies are thinking about that stuff.
Yeah,
I got a good example that I had to go back and forth with the homeowner forever. He didn't think we were on scene until he saw a deputy on his Ring camera. And I had to explain to him, like, hey, I had to show him the whole CAD printout, our dispatch printout. I was like, it was a rear window slider smash. So I said, hey, when that occurs, we're not going to go to the front door. We're going to go to the rear of the property, set up a perimeter, wait for a K9. He ultimately saw a deputy in the Ring camera like 8 minutes later, but that's because they had secured the front of the house and locked it down and then checked the perimeter. So sometimes there's things like that that go on, but
Yeah, I think it lends itself right to a little bit of talk. How do we, there's a lot of mystique, right, about how do we do what we do and making it make sense, right? Because if I was sitting in your shoes, I might be thinking the same thing. Where the hell are these guys, man? I called, right? So again, the information you provide when you call, super important, right? If you come in and you believe that there's someone that still might be in your house, you've got to say that, right? Hey, listen, I came home. I have not been inside the house yet. It looks like I was only gone for 10 minutes. They may still very well be here. Hey, there's a car I don't recognize out in front of the house. Boy, they're gonna put that call out, and even the dispatchers, like their antennas are gonna go up, and they're gonna be telling these units and those that are out there, hey, owner just got home. Suspects may still be in the home, right? So as opposed to, hey, I came home, I walked through my house, and I just realized I got burglarized, right? I noticed that the back door was pried, and I noticed that a drawer in one of the rooms was open. A little bit different, right? Yeah, it doesn't appear that anyone's in the house anymore. Again, right? A little bit of difference in the response. But even in those calls, even if you come in and sometimes you say, hey, I came in, I think it was pretty recent, but I'm fairly certain there's no one in the house. We're outside of the house. Again, those deputies are thinking, where are these people going? Because the goal is we want to capture them before they get to someone else's house, come back to your house. We want to get the people that are responsible. So they're thinking tactics. And some of those tactics are, we almost call it like setting up a net, right? Well, there's only a couple ways in and out of Woodside. So if our deputies are coming in, instead of, like I said, I used to say this when I was training new officers, I'd sit next to them and I'd say, why are you in such a hurry to get to the scene? Because if I'm the guy that just committed that crime, I am running as far away as I can.
Yeah.
I'm getting away because I know you guys are coming. And when you're driving so fast to get there, you're probably driving right past the suspect as he's driving past you on the way out. So have your head on a swivel, right? So we teach our deputies the same thing. It's like, hey, if you don't believe that it's active and they're there, and the homeowner's kind of giving that impression that they don't believe anyone's there, they're outside the home, they're safe. Hey, I'm in my car, I'm at my neighbor's house. They're going to start looking. They're going to start doing that type. They're going to set the net up, right, while they're waiting to get information to see if they can't apprehend, and then maybe go to the house and send, as soon as the deputy becomes available, send someone to the house to start collecting more information. And so that's just, it just gives you kind of a glimpse into that process. And again, it's very much predicated by the information coming in.
And it
So-
sounds to that very, that is the point, that for those of us who have security systems and cameras, we're only as good as the number of cameras that we have and what they're communicating to the security company that's telling you
Yeah.
what's going on inside. So
And some of them,
good
like I
takeaway.
said, when I was in Tiburon, we had a big issue with burglaries in that community, and it really scared the community. And what we noticed is same thing. Some folks had cameras or alarm systems that didn't turn them on. Some folks would be gone for weeks at a time, and they'd come home, and then they realized they couldn't really even pinpoint exactly when it happened. But some of the alarm systems actually have we always tell people, if you're going to have an alarm system, if you have glass, get one that detects glass shatter.
Interesting.
Because some of the folks that do this, what we realize, the sophisticated ones, know that certain systems do not detect glass shattering. So they'll shatter the glass, they'll go in 2 minutes. Like I said, 2 minutes is about the standard. They're in and out in 2 minutes. And a lot of times, again, what we know in some of these cases is somehow they're getting intel about that house from some source. We can't always pinpoint. Was it a realtor working there? Was it a house cleaner? Was it someone doing yard work? Was it someone else that just happened to walk through the house that was doing an appraisal or something?
Mhm.
Hard to say, to pinpoint, but in many of the cases, they kind of knew exactly where to go. They go into the bedroom, there's a safe in there, so 2 minutes in and out. And what happens is it doesn't always capture the glass shatter, but if you have motion sensors, it will capture the motion sensing inside the house.
Yeah.
And a lot of these alarm companies will say, hey, motion detection, we're detecting someone inside the house. We get an alarm call like that, the cavalry's coming, because they believe that someone's still actively in that house burglarizing it.
And I'll just close it real quick. So we had one where they went and the deputy gets eyes on the house. He's not right in front of the house, gets eyes on the house. And then they say, hey, we're now getting another activation, a secondary point of the house. So what does he do? Hey, units that are coming with me, I need you to get to the back. I need a perimeter set up here and here. And once they say, okay, we're in position, okay, I need another deputy here with me, and we're going to go into the front. He keeps eyes on the house. And that was 6 minutes to get that all set up. And then they're like, well, why did it take, then now it's 13 minutes. Now it's 17 minutes. So you actually see a deputy come. is because they're listening to the information and really putting us in a position of advantage if they are in fact inside the house. And I challenge you, if you ever have a question, if like a response, you hear a neighbor, feel free to reach out and have someone explain it to you. Because once we give you context, you go, oh, that kind of makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to take the next question from the Zoom room. We have Eden.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for your service and taking the time to be here tonight. I live in the Woodside Hills neighborhood where 2 new flock cameras were installed. My question for you is, what's the strategy on signage for the flock cameras? Are we intentionally trying to not call attention to them, or would signage actually help deter criminals?
Thank you. That's a great question. Kevin, do you want to?
Yeah, I will. No, I've got you here, so I'll ask the question. But we actually, on the ALPRs, I'll just make the side note. You saw on the transparency portal, and it was noted by Captain Myers, we have 17 active in town. We have 3 that are currently under permit with the state of California for Highway 84. And council has also directed, and staff is working with the sheriff's office and Flock to locate. I think the direction we got from council was 3 to 5. Staff's going to come back with a recommendation for 6.
Signs.
No, Flock cameras. In addition to that, council asked us to come back with a proposal for signage. And one of the questions that I've asked deputies to speak to, and the answer I've gotten is not definitive, and I'm probably not getting a definitive here tonight based on the smile degree, about whether there's any proof of efficacy of signage. Does it make a difference or does it not? And if so, what's the location?
I don't know of any study that's been done or by talking with criminals like, hey, guys in County Jail, hey, I saw that, LPR sign, don't come into town, and I stopped. I would think if you wanted to put just maybe a sign at the entrance on 84 into the town, not attached to a LPR, that way, for security reasons, that's not exposing, the location of the LPR or something like that blatantly. But I mean, you never know. It could have, if it stops one person, then it's worth it.
And I'll say this from experience. In Tiburon, you could not get in and out of Tiburon without being captured on an automated license plate. They were one of the first towns to introduce automated license plate readers. And it was interesting because that word did get around. And I remember we had a case where my officers were interviewing a suspect. And he said, I thought twice because I know it's well known that you guys have those license plate readers. So he admitted it, but knowing that, he still came in and did what he did, and we still caught him. So it does, that word travels. This is a network, and these folks, they do network. They do talk to each other. They share information. And so that information does travel if you do have them out there, especially when we have a case and they know that we were able to tie their vehicle to a particular crime or identify them through an automated license plate readers. Again, I don't know of any study that talks to the efficacy of the signs, but certainly that it can serve as a deterrent. I always say this though, if someone, and some of these groups are very sophisticated, if they are intent on a particular target and they feel comfortable that the people aren't going to be home, most of these people do not want to confront people. They do not want to go in your home when you're home. That defeats what they're trying to do. They want to get in, they want to go for the high price items that they're looking for, and then they want to get out. It's a timing thing for them, and having someone in the house interrupts everything. And then they also know that could potentially increase the penalties they may face if they're caught. And so they know that. Sometimes it happens by accident that they'll engage. In most of the cases I've seen where someone interrupted it, they hightailed it out of the house as fast as they could, because as you could tell, they were almost surprised because they thought the house was vacant. And that happens in most cases. Is it possible that someone could engage? That's why we always say, yes, we don't want you to engage them. It is certainly possible. These are still unpredictable people in many ways because they're breaking into folks' homes. But that being said, putting up signage and it's probably not going to hurt you, like you said, as long as you don't put it on the ALPR readers itself, because then they start to lose their value, because then folks that engage in this activity go, well, if I take this route, we can avoid the license plate readers altogether.
sense. Before moving on to the next question, I do want to pause and recognize that Supervisor Mueller is here. It's really great to see you. Do you want to say anything? We welcome you up to the mic. All right, whenever you're ready. But thank you for being here. Chris?
Hey.
First off, I'd like to thank the mayor for organizing our event tonight, along with Town Manager Bryant, and particularly the four of you guys for coming out at now 8:20 on a Thursday night. Thanks. My question goes back to something I believe Captain Fox said, it might have been Mark, about home security cameras. If our driveway camera captures a license plate and it's not one of our vehicles or the UPS truck or any of the known vehicles, does that license plate, is it possible to cross-reference that with the Flock database? I'm getting a nod.
Yeah, if your security cameras at home are, have the imaging capability to get a license plate, and like you see a car that pulls in your driveway or something like that, we could take that license plate number and run it through Flock if we had like a suspicious, incident that we could tie it to. Maybe there had been a burglary in the area or on your street, and you said, hey, at 6 p.m., this car that I've never seen before pulled in my driveway. My home camera got the plate. We could then put that into Flock to see, hey, did it enter in the same time frame that the burglary occurred?
That's fantastic. Given how much we looked at this when we were approving the cameras, I'm surprised that question didn't come up, but I think that is valuable, particularly if anybody's considering putting in a camera. It's not that hard to mount them 4 feet off the ground and pointing straight down your driveway. Thank you.
I think the quality of it really is what matters, right? The pixelation so that it's able to capture that. And then just back to those license plate readers, remember they are audited. So we can't just enter in there and run a license plate in the system. We have to have a reason and an investigation because all that gets audited. And so again, to ensure that we're using them properly. So, but for investigative purposes, if we're investigating a crime, that would be a reason to enter that system.
I'm Rob Schumacher. I'm on Whiskey Hill Road. I had a couple comments. One is on the signs. I think it's a great idea because people get off, they see them, and it starts a conversation, just makes people go, hey, let's be aware. They must have cameras because there are burglaries going on. Let's look for suspicious cars. And then on these cameras in the Flock system, is there something we can do? You say you have the personnel resources. Can we put more money or give more money or do a GoFundMe and give you access to more cameras? Thank you.
I mean, if you guys choose to, I know there are HOAs in the county where the HOAs have got together or the neighborhoods have gotten together and purchased Flock cameras. So there are private accounts. And then if you did that, you could share the data with us and that way we would have access to it. But Flock does sell their camera systems to civilians. You could put one in your driveway. My wife just won't let me, so.
Yeah, the other thing that's helpful too is, so we also have a registry for folks that have surveillance cameras. And what all a registry does is it lets us know if your house gets burglarized, that deputy can pull up that information and go, oh, this house over here has a surveillance camera, so I better go over there right now and see if I can, see what their surveillance camera might have captured. So it's just another tool that when they're investigating, they know what houses to go check to see who might have surveillance camera rather than just kind of randomly knocking and seeing who has it or doesn't.
Thanks again for tonight. I think this is great. I think it's been very helpful. A couple questions. On the 4 to 9 time frame that's in the brochure that you say are I guess the most likely time that people would be looking at to try to break in. Can you tell me out of the 20 break-ins that we had, how many of those were the alarm on? Number 2, how many people were home or not home? And third, and I haven't heard anything about dogs. Are dogs a deterrent? Or do they help at all to get bad guys to forget about trying to break in? I'm also interested in how do they choose targets? In other words, this is just a scout driving the neighborhood looking for signs that nobody's home? Or is it in some cases pre-scouted and they know ahead of time by some informant that you mentioned to do that? And these are all questions that keep coming up in all of our minds when we hear about another burglary. And I just had a friend in Palo Alto, the second story broken in. They think it was a scout, but they don't know for sure. How do they know exactly where to go and get in and out in 3 minutes?
Unfortunately,
So there's a lot of questions. Obviously, I don't have the specific details as to, I know, shocking. Specific details as to some of the specifics you had, but if you want to give that to like Kevin, we can do some research to give you that. 4 to 9 daylight savings time, right? It's getting darker earlier. It's going to change here in a minute. So those hours might change as well. I can tell you that in talking to suspects or confidential informants, they'll tell you that they are doing their research. They're driving these neighborhoods. They're looking at a house that has a lot of shrubbery. Where's the access? Oh, look, there's a school behind here, or there's a park, or there's not a neighbor for, a 1.5 miles away. They'll drive down. They'll see what cars are in the driveway. They'll see what lights are on. I mean, I've talked to people. I've been doing this a long time. I've talked to people. They say, we'll watch your house for a week. If we Zillow your house and it's worth the, you probably have some valuables in there. So we'll do our research before. We'll take pictures of your driveway as we drive down the block. We'll see what time you leave. We'll put somebody out there, just say, hey, see what time they leave. Hey, consistently through the week, she takes her kids to school at 8:15 every day. Where's she gone from? These people, we've gotten people with books. You catch them and they have books of written stuff, or it's in their phone. You know what I mean? Because this right here is the window to your soul, right? People keep notes on this thing. So you get someone's cell phone, you write a search warrant for the cell phone. It gives you a lot of information, text messages, things like, hey, they're leaving here. So when I tell you this is a profession for them, it is. And unfortunately, the ROI in Woodside is high. So if that answers your question, they are doing research. They're not just, these aren't just random people coming up, picking out your house. From Daly City and going in San Francisco, the red envelopes, they look for certain types of residences that have things that distinguish, and there's stereotypes with that. We don't trust banks. We have a lot of valuables. And so they target certain things. So that's why we can do an assessment on your house, and you can look at your house and say, how can I make this not so inviting for individuals to go there? But go ahead.
and sir,
I'll come back to your question on dogs. I think Supervisor Mueller, did you have a few things you'd like to say? Maybe we can let you talk and then we can go back and finish the answers.
Yeah, I did want to touch something that I'm not sure that you all would have touched, but I did want to share with some folks. Another thing that you can do candidly right now at this time is that you can start to help address some of the underlying causes for what's happening here. It would be great if you reached out to our we have good local legislators, but if you reached out to them and you told them that you would support rolling back some of the criminal justice reforms that have actually led to these increasing property crimes that we're seeing right now. It's really important that they feel like they have the support of the community to go ahead and bring back some of the enforcement penalties that were in place prior to this. Law enforcement right now is having to deal with, in many respects, some failed experiments. And they're not going to say that. I have the ability where I can say that to you. Reach out to your legislators and tell them that you'll support them. And frankly, you'll support some of the rollbacks of the reforms that the governor is trying to bring out right now. That's going to have to be fought through the state legislature, but we have seen this happen progressively get worse every year since those reforms were put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I just wanted to touch back on your last point. You talked about dogs. They can be a deterrent, absolutely, especially if you have a dog that barks a lot. So I have a dog that barks a lot, but if she'd lick your face off if you walked inside the house, she's a lover, and she's going to jump on your lap before she attacks you. But she's got a loud bark. And if you walk past our house and you get close enough, she's going to bark, and it's loud. And so that we know in some cases, and some of the folks that we talked to, they said that has served as a deterrent, right? Because again, remember, they're always looking for the path of least resistance, right? They want to get in, they want to get out. They don't want to get captured. They want to get your valuables that they can go then fence. What fence is basically an illegal place they could take them to so they can sell them and get money for it. And so it's all about the path of least resistance. So the more barriers, we call it hardening the target, right? If you think your house might be a potential target, how can you harden that target to make it a less attractive target? Dog is one way that could be a less attractive target for sure. Again, if they're hell-bent enough and they've done their homework enough and they see my dog licking everyone that walks into the house, I'm like, oh, yeah, that dog's no big deal. So we'll just go in the house, throw her a dog treat, and she's going to be fine, right? But yes, I think in many cases we have heard that. I've actually heard folks that engage in this type of thing say, yeah, you know, if you got a dog in your house, I'm not messing with it. I'm not gonna take the risk. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want some dog biting me. So it can help. But there's also the other part of, right, taking care of the dog and all the other things that come along with that. But it can be a deterrent. Anything you can do to answer your question that would make your house otherwise more difficult for them to get in and get out, it's gonna make them think twice about wanting to enter that home. So they want easy.
So the primary entry point we're finding is the rear sliding door. So one easy thing you guys can do is you can Google search, security film. They make security film that you can put on your rear sliders that will, and we've seen many cases where they simply go in the backyard, they grab your chair off your deck or your patio and they throw it right through the slider. So you can actually get security film of varying strengths up to like bulletproof that, and if you can put that on there, they swing a chair at that thing once or twice and all the noise it's going to make, they're going to get out of there. But the primary entrance point we're seeing in the majority of our burglaries is the rear sliding door being smashed.
And that's consistent through the area. That was even happening up in Marin County. Back door, glass doors. That's why we always say shatter glass, that glass detection too on your alarm.
Hi. Ooh, you're a lot taller than I am. Whoop. Sorry. Anyway, I'm Heidi Brown. I live on Kenyatta Road. And thank you, Jen and Kevin, for putting this together. Bend my tippy toes. Thank you. Much easier. And thanks, gentlemen. This is wildly important, and I'm delighted that you all are having this conversation. I know two people personally who had their homes broken into, and it is so unsettling. It's so horrible, and don't wish that on anybody. But I'd like to take kind of a little right turn, and I'd like to talk about safety on some of our roads. I'm on Kenyatta Road, been there for 34 years, and I've looked out the same kitchen window at cars going by, and I bet with pretty good accuracy, I'm as good as your radar detectors at telling you how fast cars are flying by.
We're hiring.
And, yeah. Can I still sit in my kitchen window? It scares me. There are 3 times when it's bad. One's the weekend, and the weekends are horrible because lots of people come into town. Lots of bikes are on the road. I'm not saying anything you don't know, and they're horses. And those 3 are not a good mix. And I don't want to be a doomsayer, but I feel like we're sometimes on borrowed time. We've had a good stretch where nothing bad's happened, and it really worries me. The other times, going to school in the morning, Kenyatta Road's a whole different place in June, July, August, not August anymore. And people that are 5 minutes late are on your bumper, and I've been passed going down Kenyatta Road by a person who pulls in the school parking lot 2 minutes in front of me. Kenyatta's getting busier. There are going to be some new homes built. I'm not here to talk about that, but it's a busy spot. And the other time is around 5 o'clock when Waze, which is an evil that's corrupting society, in my opinion, sends everybody up Kenyatta Road when 280's backed off. And it's the same thing. I've been taking my dog and more lately my grandson up for a walk in the evening, and you have to sometimes jump back. Just because a car's going so fast, it's not going to hit me, but it sure doesn't feel good. So my long-winded way of saying, please, could you continue this conversation also with a real mind towards safety on Kenyatta, Woodside Road, my daughter's on Sand Hill Road. Everybody here could probably throw in a street, but Kenyatta and Woodside worry me to death. It's a good news, bad news. The good news is there are more and more kids wanting to ride their bikes to school, coming from the Glens. I love it. My 2 grandsons live with us on property. They ride their bikes to school, and I didn't used to have this much gray hair. It's scary, and it shouldn't be scary. That's the good news. They're trying to ride their bikes to school. And the bad news, more kids are trying to ride their bikes to school, and we don't want anything to happen.
Thank you so much for your comments. I'm totally with you. I share your concerns. I have 3 kids, and the weather's getting nicer, and they can walk to school from where we live. I can share with you that this is a really active conversation. The circulation committee is looking at this, and in particular, we're nearing the end of the Glens path construction, and so that's going to allow even more kids to walk to school and ride their bikes to school. And I think we really need a better crossing at Glenwood and Cunata. So this is an active conversation within the circulation committee. So I would really encourage you to get in touch with your circulation committee member, who I think is Asan. I don't know if you know him. But you know, this, like I said, this is an active conversation, and hopefully we'll see something
Maybe
soon.
stop signs or I don't know what, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, it needs to go up. Thanks for being here. I had a couple of questions on your burglaries that go 0, 6, 14, 20. If you go back pre-COVID, what would those numbers have looked like? Do you have a sense?
I don't think they were as high. I can't really comment off the top. I only went back so far for.
But 20 is the outlier for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So 2019, it was probably, just kind of basing it, I think it would be a lot less than 2023.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it was that high. I think maybe Captain Myers might have some context.
They're fairly consistent in the low teens.
Okay. And do you think throughout this has been a gang or an organized thing?
We've seen a big uptick along the 280 corridor, especially down in Santa Clara County. I know I did a presentation for Portola Valley a while back. And our numbers in Woodside and PV were much lower than the surrounding cities around here. Like Los Altos Hills and the town of Los Altos Hills, they had, I think at one point it was in the high 40s.
Wow.
They got hit really hard. So we're like, again, we were seeing sophistication of the cruisers increasing. They're going out renting high-end vehicles. It serves two purposes. One, it blends into the neighborhood. And then two, if we get behind them and we're going to chase them, they're renting Porsches now, and there's no way we're going to catch a Porsche. So you're seeing a lot more sophistication and the counter surveillance they're doing to select their targets. So unfortunately, the 280 corridor gives them a quick exit, and they can go right up to the city, get on 92 and go across to the East Bay, because we're seeing the majority of the burglary crews are coming from those other jurisdictions. Unfortunately, where they have DAs that are not charging as aggressively as our county district attorney is charging. So we're unfortunately seeing a lot of spill off from the other counties because of some lack of public safety issues over there.
And it seems like you've apprehended some of these people, but is it whack-a-mole where you get rid of one and then there's 3 others behind
They're
you?
getting spanked pretty good. Unfortunately, a lot of times they get a slap on the wrist in SF, in Alameda County and Cocoa County. And then eventually, once they get their case adjudicated there, they'll come back to us. And then we usually do a pretty good job of sending the message of it's not going to be tolerated.
Yeah, if I can just piggyback on that with in relationship to the statistics that we had 0 residential burglaries in Woodside is because we've identified some crews that are active. I can't talk about the active investigations. Like I said, it's a very small amount of individuals that do this here, there, all over the place. And then someone stops and we share information. So I think that's why the decrease, especially here in San Mateo County and preferably Woodside. But I can tell you that the message is getting out there in relationship to that.
Thank you.
I also want to just touch on one thing. I know the topic of, hey, we don't chase, right, for property crimes. And what that is we don't pursue. If the vehicle, right, if the vehicle is going to starting to drive crazy and dangerously, then we're not going to pursue it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to vigorously go after that. You know, the unfortunate thing about pursuits is sometimes they work. Yeah, sometimes we catch the people, but unfortunately, I'm not so much worried about the deputies chasing that person. I'm worried about the fact that that person's trying to get away and their motivation is to get away, and they do not care about public safety at that point. And, you know, I'm sorry for us, a human life is just so much more important than catching someone for a property crime if they're not endangering the lives of other people. Doesn't mean what they did isn't a crime and it's not important and we're not going to capture them. That's where the license plate readers and these other investigative tools become more of an equalizer, right? Because instead of having to chase after them, now we get a lead and we can work that lead. We're also looking at some technology right now that will allow us to deploy like a projectile, if you will, that goes and attaches itself to a car with GPS monitoring on it. So, you know, we realize that, hey, we still want to do what we can to follow after these folks, but rather than chase and endanger the safety and well-being, right, of innocent people, We just, it's tough. We don't want to take that risk. We don't want to, unless this is a violent person and we've got to stop them because the risk to safety is so important. But that being said, it doesn't mean we're not going to pursue it. We're just going to be smarter about how we do it. And so we're looking at technology. As a matter of fact, Captain Myers is spearheading a technology that we're looking at that will actually be mounted on some of our patrol vehicles and gets deployed when they're going after one of these vehicles, so they can get just close enough, deploy it, the dart hits, it sticks, and then they can back off and then track the vehicle. And we've got drones, we've got an airplane, we've got all sorts of other technology that we can call. I always say this, right? We always want to, we want to catch these people on our terms, not their terms. Because usually when it's on their terms, it becomes more dangerous to the safety of folks around. But like I said, I just want to make that, it doesn't mean we're not going to go after them. Our sheriff is very clear on this, right? Your safety is important, and we don't want you feeling like we're not going to do our part to do what we can. The supervisor talked about some other laws and other factors at play here, but we're still going to do our part as best as we can to hold these people accountable. And whatever this justice system does after that, they're going to do. But at the very minimum, we hope we're sending that message. If you come to Woodside, you're going to expect we're going to find you, and we're going to hold you accountable.
All right. I'm not seeing any questions in the Zoom room, but we've got another question in the room.
Do we know if these crews are armed?
Yes.
I can tell you a lot of times, some video surveillance, you'll see, not necessarily here in the town of Woodside, but throughout the region, the 6 Bay Area counties, you will see some people that are armed. I would say it's more likely they probably are. That's why we don't want you to engage them. Do we have people, if they've done their research, they know you're not home? Probably not, but you always have to assume they're armed. But we've had video surveillance and some investigations here in San Mateo County where you see them with guns going into people's homes.
Yeah, to that point, what we've seen too is that some violent felons have said, "Hey, why am I going to do this violent stuff? Because if I get caught, I could face steeper penalties, right? So why don't I do property crimes where I know if I do get caught, the penalties aren't as steep, and hey, I'm not going to be endangering my life, right? I can go in, get out, no one's home, but they're still dangerous people, and they still, just as a matter of a lifestyle, right, still may drive around armed because of their general lifestyle."
Sort of like the supervisor talked about some of the changing of the laws, there's a East Bay County where the prosecutor, the district attorney won't charge like felony enhancements for, gang members caught with firearms or convicted felons with firearms. That won't happen here. We have routinely recovered vehicles that have been involved in burglaries where we do locate firearms. So.
All right. Any more questions in the room? Dahlia.
I don't have a question so much as I wanted to share a couple of tips. And one was for a little old lady friend of mine who lived alone. And when she did a couple times hear somebody coming in the back door, and she yelled out, "George, get your gun." And immediately left.
Can't put that in the brochure,
Thank
though.
God. I've never had to use it. But anyway. And then the other tip was my husband, Steve, and I were driving on Highway 80, and this is pertaining to stolen license plates. And we got the guy pull over, and I said, "Registration's up to date, no broken light, what's the registration? We're not driving fast." And so he pulls us over and gets out, and I said, what's going on? And he says, "Your blue tag is gone," the little renewal on the license. And I won't say what I said because it was really bad. And I look, and we have a plate where you have to screw the little corner. And they had carefully razor bladed around and pulled the whole thing off. And of course, now I'm swearing like crazy. And so he says, "Well, you got to get a new one." I said, "Don't make me go to the DMV." He says, "No, you can do it online. It's $15. So I said, "Okay." And before he left, he says, "Let me give you a tip. When you get the new one, score it." He said, "Put an X through it and then a cross." And I said, "But I don't drive in really bad places." And he says, "Score it." He says, "Look at mine. Mine is scored." So I'm offering that tip because very often it will be stolen, but they'll have the blue tag. that was the first thing he pulled us over for. We were fine, and it matched our paper registration. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting from a CHP.
I did that tip I do that tip with them, and my wife got mad at me. So
Make sure
Anyway,
make sure
those are
you
my-
scored after you put it on the license.
Those are my tips for the evening.
Thank you, Thalia.
Thank you so much for coming and thank you for all that you do. We have a property in Woodside that has the horse trail on two sides of it. And I'm wondering if that is sometimes an access to properties.
I mean, I can say, you know, when someone's looking at your residence, like you said, the rear door, because no one can see you, right?
Right.
So if you look at your house, and this would be a great opportunity to have one of our deputies come up and give you a really good assessment to say, hey, this is probably a pretty good one or probably not. It's hard for me to kind of speculate, but
Right.
if it's out of sight of other people to see it other than yourself, it's probably a good opportunity to do that. And I think it's a
Yeah.
good opportunity to reach out and have somebody come up and actually put eyes on your house and tell you.
And see whether
Exactly.
that's an enhancement to the situation. Good.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Good evening. I couldn't let you go without talking about Four Corners. So one of the comments I hear a lot up there is, one, why don't we have cameras issuing speeding tickets? I bet there's some people either in the room or online wondering why that's not something we have. And then two, why don't we see more patrol cars at Alice's or the trading post, kind of a presence to deter speeding up there?
Yeah, I can tell you that, you know, Kevin, everybody's reached out. We have done a lot of stuff up there. It's always when we're not there, everyone says we're not there, right? I can tell you, we did it 2 weeks ago. We went out there in conjunction with the CHP. 35 citations were issued up in that area, you know, at the direction of the mayor. But we do go up there a lot. We don't want to we're not trying to destroy businesses. We're trying to just kind of send a message, you know. There's kind of the educational portion of it, then you kind of have the enforcement portion of it. You know, this problem's been going on for a long time. So if we take that two-prong approach, it's really kind of helping us because there's a lot more. The CSOs go up there for parking and, you know, I can only buy them so many sandwiches and then I have to tell them they're on their own. But I can tell you that step is that saturated enforcement with the county where we get lots of people come up. We did that in Woodside probably a month ago, I think it was, where the whole county came in. All the motor officers came up to Woodside and Portola Valley. And trust me, I got enough voicemails and emails, you know, to carry me for another month. But we don't like to do that. Obviously, we'd like it. But if you look at, I think inside here in the stats, how many people actually lived in San Mateo County that were from Woodside, I think it was 85% of the people that were cited don't live here. So that was great in that aspect. But at the same time, we are doing stuff to do it, but we don't want to overload the town of Woodside with complaints. But it's on the radar, if we will.
So to that point, there is no system really out there, and like Europe, they have cameras that can actually, issue speeding tickets. That technology is not here in the state or legal at this point. There's been, as a matter of fact, even with red light camera technologies, a lot of cities have gone away from it because of all the challenges that come up legally with those. But that being said, I just want to add in too that you guys here in Woodside, you guys actually, as part of the plan here, you get 2 motorcycle officers. So that is something that's unique kind of to Woodside to have that coverage. And their job is to focus on those problem areas. So if you identify those problem areas, first we work with CHP because if it is an unincorporated area outside of the town, it's their jurisdiction. But again, we don't really care. We just want it to be safe. So we work with them hand in hand and say, hey, can we partner up and we'll send some folks over, you send some folks over. But in the town of Woodside itself, those motorcycle officers are there to address some of those concerns. If you see things like the speeding on the Kenyatta, we can get them out there. We'll get a presence out there and we can do some enforcement.
Hi, I was wondering, is there any correlation you found between burglaries and construction? And also I'm wondering, are gates and doorbirds and cameras and all that a big deterrent?
Yeah, so the first one, when we take those investigative leads, if your house was recently remodeled, right? If you have people doing work inside your home, you have to be cognizant of the people in which you hire, right? Because if I was to come in here and I saw you leave your watch out, or you're like, "Oh man, this is a nice house." You know what I mean? Nothing prevents me from calling my buddy. And if I'm neighborhood, what? Well, yeah, you always, because people are always looking for opportunity, right? I can't say everybody is like that. But I can tell you that there has been investigations where we kind of backpedaled, like what was going there. This house was being worked on, and everybody ate lunch on this side of the fence. And they said, this house is vacant. They're remodeling inside. It ends up getting broken into, right? And so, yes, it's something that we factor in the investigative steps that they do, but mostly with people that work inside your own home or have access to your home and know your routine. We had one recently where I think they knew her routine and we're kind of following up on some leads, but because the window of opportunity was very, very small, but it was consistent. And the only way you know that someone has a routine and is consistent if you're doing research, you know, right? So there's a lot of things that we follow up on, but construction in the neighborhood, what's going on? Absolutely. Gates are very helpful, but if there's if you back up to an open space or there's easily accessible to your residents, they're not going to go through your front. They're going to go through your back. Like we said, that's the majority of it. So that's why you want us to come out and say, hey, look, this is like a fortress, which is great, but you have probably one weak point here. And this is what I would do to kind of curb this one point, because this is where I would gain access if I was a criminal. And that's why it's nice for us to come out and take a look.
Hi, I wanted to thank the mayor and town manager for putting this together, and what a show of force to have here, all the brass from our police agencies. But we're very happy that you're here and we're very lucky to have you. And I also want to thank Ray Mueller for being here. We have the best supervisor anywhere. He's an honorary citizen of Woodside. He's here so much. But I did want to just mention two things. One, the sheriff's department put together a really nice brochure for all the common elements of these crimes, when they occur, what they go after. And I would just encourage everybody, they were nice enough to leave them on the back table here and to pick these things up. And it would be nice to see. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, and Captain Fox had mentioned it a bit earlier, nobody knows our neighborhoods or our streets better than we do. And no matter how great our patrols are and how often they're here, we drive those streets every single day. I know, I've lived on my street for 27 years. I know every car, I know every neighbor, and to just stay alert to what you see. And of course, they'd rather answer a false alarm than have to investigate a real residential burglary later. And just to echo what Ray said, our legislators, Josh Becker and Mark Berman, they need to know that we really have an issue with the way criminals are being pursued in our state. And they do need to know that we have their backs if they can undo some of these laws that have been, I think, ill-advised here and have caused some of the increases in crime. So I would encourage people to take that step. Again, these brochures for people we have 50 people here and another 50 people on Zoom. And if they need these brochures, these are really helpful. And I just want to thank the Sheriff's Department for putting these out. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to the Zoom room. Asan, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Wall. Yeah, I heard your earlier comment in response to the resident who was talking about this meeting in Kenyatta. I just want to plug the circulation committee is definitely always here to listen to residents, and we interface with the sheriff. So when the sheriff's representative shows up to our meetings once a month when we have them, and yeah, we're always happy to have conversations, email, in person, or in the meetings. We will eventually have an email address that goes to the whole committee, but for now, you can just, if you go on the website and look for the circulation committee, you can find our names and either find us through Google, or you can email, I think, Melissa Cardinale, the assistant town manager, and she always forwards things on to us. So yeah, always happy to listen. And like Mayor Wall said, we want to try to make the roads as safe as possible, and it's definitely something that's high on our list. So thank you very much, and thanks to all the folks who attended tonight.
All right, anybody else in the room have a question?
So I live in Woodside Hills, and I was wondering if you have a breakdown by district of the burglaries of
District,
last
like
year. Like, do you have a number for Woodside Hills? I think there were 20 burglaries in Woodside last year, and how many of them were in Woodside Hills?
So I'll do this, after we're done, I'll give you my email address, email me and I'll get that information for you.
Okay. And then my second question is like, how far back do the recordings go with the license plate readers?
Retention?
Or,
ELPRs?
60 days?
It's 60 days, yeah.
okay, so we had a weird incident at my house, but it was in October, so. I mean, I have gates, so I came through the gates and a car came in. It was like 8:30 or 9 p.m. at night. And then they said that fortunately my son and his really big friends were with me. Normally I'm come home by myself. So these people came out of the car and then they were like, oh, sorry, we were looking for Coleman house. But so I sent them to Coleman's, but they weren't their friends.
Yeah.
So things, so they can also like drive right behind you through the gates. So gates are not really that full security.
Yeah, for sure.
So something that happened in October won't be on the camera.
No, I mean, if you had video surveillance of maybe the license plate or something like that, we could follow up on that. But in relationship to the retention of the actual video, the town sets those requirements.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason for a lot of that comes again to those privacy concerns and issues. There's a lot of groups out there that are very, very concerned, right, about the privacy of these automated license plate readers. So they have these strict retention schedules so that the data is regularly getting purged.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Hi, my name is Elizabeth. Thank you guys for being here. I have a question going back to Melissa's comment on call times, like what is the response time? We unfortunately are one of the 20 people that were burglarized in November of last year. We also had a very unfortunate response time to our situation. I was not there. I was in flight with my children. But what I think is really bothering me and what really makes me unsettled is the fact that I had a neighbor call 7 minutes before they broke our glass and said, hey, someone's in my yard, called dispatch. They came 7 minutes later into our yard, broke our glass. Regardless, we weren't home. Like you said, insurance covers it, but nobody knew if we were inside that house or not. My phone is off. When the alarm company calls, they can't get a hold of me. So I guess the fact that you guys showed up an hour later onto our property, I know that there were some issues with the gates getting in, although we're open on the other side of that gate. So gates don't deter this. The guy hopped over the gate, 6-foot gate, in front of 3 cars driving by. Anyways, I just want to know what you're doing different. Like, what is it because I know at the time when I spoke with you, Matthew, that there was a shift change at the time and maybe you guys were on another call. But just for peace of mind, like I'm home a lot alone with my children. I just want to know that if there is an issue and I am calling or somebody else calls or my alarm calls for me, what is that response time as opposed to 57 minutes later?
Yeah, I know we talked at length a while ago
Yep.
about this. We kind of dissected the response time and so forth. So I don't remember off the top of my head because I've done that a couple of times. I can tell you that, I looked over a lot of these coming in preparation of this and the response times, usually there's contact made or visual on the house in under 10 minutes, and whatever that looks like. And I know you kind of had a unique case with that, with the gate and some other things going on.
And the neighbor who called, because they hopped from her fence over mine.
Yeah.
On the other side. There were 4.
Yeah, so I can tell you, there was another one that was brought to my attention from Portola Valley as well, and I looked into that as well, and some issues came out that we're still trying to figure out with the dispatch, whether that there was a breakdown with communications when they got the call and they kind of sat in a queue before they actually dispatched us. And so they're researching that for the gentleman in the back. And, just looking at it, I can tell you there was nothing stood out to me where I was like, oh my God, that was so egregious. I mean, I know you were kind of like the unicorn of the cases at the time. And I don't remember all the specifics about it. I don't want to get into details about your specific case in this forum, but I'd be more than happy to talk to you to try to figure out. An hour sounds, and I think we talked about it at the time, sounded pretty egregious, and I don't think it really panned out that way. But
It got to my neighbors first 30 minutes after the call.
yeah, there was 2 separate calls. Yeah.
2 separate calls.
Yeah.
And then I guess the gate, couldn't get through, so waited until the alarm company got the code.
Yeah.
Regardless, I just want to know what it is. And if our case was just the unicorn case and it was different than any other
Yeah.
response, then
Yeah, I
that's
can tell
all
you
the answer
that
I need.
nothing stood out. I mean, I remember your case. I remember talking to you for an hour on the phone.
Yep.
I can tell you nothing that I did as a captain, as a leader of the organization who pushes out the message with response times and so forth stood out on really any other case. Yours seemed to be kind of this one where there was a lot going on and the resources that were there with other things going on. Not to make excuses for that, but I think I narrowed it down at the time. But I can tell you that nothing stood out in the majority of those since that time, which caused me concern as the bureau captain, because the message, you kind of hit the beginning portion of this madness, right? And so a lot of things were changed after you, in response times and just communication with homeowners of why maybe we were delayed. They don't communicate. A lot of times they don't communicate that stuff well to residents when they have these concerns. But I can tell you that if you call us and tell us, I see someone in my yard, the response is going to be pretty fast, just in light of the approach that the sheriff's office is really doing now. Because I can tell you, just in Portola Valley, we were there and someone called about a guy with a vest on, like electrical vest to kind of blend in the other day. I think it's up somewhere in Portola Valley in a nice neighborhood as well. They were there in under 2 minutes.
Nice.
So it kind of depends, right? So I can tell you that nothing stood out to me. We make improvements every day. We can all do better, right? I can be a better boss, a better parent at times. So I can just reassure you that if you are home alone and you have your children, feel free to call 911 anytime you see anything suspicious. We'll get there as fast as we can.
Great, thank you. And then just one thing for the city, as legality, like we've already inquired about a flock reader for in front of our house that would cover the bridge, really, Mountain Home, either direction. Do we need to inform you guys? Do we need to inform our neighbors? Is there any, or are we able to put up our own and?
You're able to put up your own camera and you can do the registry that they mentioned earlier. I think there's avenues to provide any data that your camera on your property collects to law enforcement. So that's something that the town of Woodside wouldn't be involved in at all, although we would be a beneficiary of any data that your camera collects, and that's useful in any crime investigation.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
I just want to follow up on one thing and just say to you, on behalf of our office and certainly on behalf of our sheriff, is that, we apologize in the sense that we don't want our community members to feel like there wasn't an appropriate response. It does seem like it was a one-off. I did talk to Captain Fox about this. That's certainly not the outcome. Our outcome is we try to get to our calls for service. The ideal time is 5 minutes or less is ideally. Sometimes it's a little weird up here, right? Because some of the areas that we patrol, this area is kind of vast between Portola Valley and Woodside. And some of those roads are tight and windy and stuff. So the environment here sometimes can play into those response times a little bit. But I know that it did definitely, after his research, seem like a one-off. But no excuses. We don't want you to come out of a call feeling that way. That's not what we shoot for. That's not what the sheriff wants. And so I just want to say on our behalf that, we're going to ensure that we continue to look at those response times and apologize if you were left feeling that way or your family.
All right. Nothing from the Zoom room. So Zoom room, close to last call. If you have any questions, please do raise your hand in the Zoom. And I think we're nearing last call in the room here. If anybody has any questions, we would love to hear them. All right. I know it's 9:00 on the dot. So with that, I guess I want to maybe just make very brief closing remarks, mainly just to really say thank you first and foremost to all of the Woodside residents, both here in the room and on the Zoom that took the time to attend. I know it's a weeknight and it really shows your commitment to Woodside that you showed up. And so we really appreciate that. Huge thank you to our sheriff partners. It was just really fantastic to partner with you all on this. And just thank you. Thank you for the preparation. Thank you for the time. And in particular, Sheriff Fox, really just your commitment to Woodside has been so amazing. I'm a member of the Glenn's WhatsApp group, and I see your engagement on that, and I'm just so impressed and so thankful. So I think we just want to acknowledge that. Thank you to my fellow council members. What a strong showing. It was really amazing to see you all here tonight, and thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. And thank you, Ray Mueller, for showing up and for your comments. I wrote down some notes here. I do the little box when I have it to do, and it says letter regarding failed experiments. So we'll see what we can do to support you in that. And then just what some of my takeaways, like it's so great to see that the data is trending down. I really want to see that continue. And so, I'd like to continue this really strong partnership to make sure that we continue to see a big zero under the number of residential burglaries in Woodside. Really appreciate all of the tips. I know I'm going to be reaching out to get my home assessed. I think that's a really wonderful offer, but just generally, I think we all learned a lot of great tips tonight. I hope we can all institute that in our own lives. And I really neglected to thank our town staff, our town manager, and the other members of the staff that helped us put this on. So with that, thank you. We can all go home. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.